Sudan crisis, what the United Nations has called one of the world's largest humanitarian crises. For more than 2 years, Sudan has been consumed by a brutal civil war that has killed over 150,000 people and displaced more than 12 million. The human toll is staggering, yet the global response has been described as woefully inadequate, and the conflict, alarmingly, remains largely invisible. The conflict has recently reached a catastrophic turning point with the fall of Fasher, the capital of North Darfur, to the Paramilitary Rapid Support Forces, or RSF, in late October 2025. The events following this takeover have intensified warnings of ethnic cleansing and genocide unfolding in plain sight. To understand this war, we must look at its origins. The conflict exploded in April 2023, stemming from a power struggle between two men, General Abdel Fattah al-Burhan, who leads the Sudanese Armed Forces, SAF, and General Mohammad Hamdan Daglo, known as Hemedti, the commander of the RSF. These two generals were once allies. They jointly staged a coup in October 2021 that overthrew Sudan's fragile transitional civilian government. However, tensions boiled over, particularly concerning the plan to integrate the RSF's 100,000-strong force into the army and who would ultimately lead the unified force. Both men were determined to preserve their power, wealth, and influence. The RSF is not a new entity. It traces its origins directly to the notorious Janjaweed militias, groups that carried out mass killings and ethnic cleansing against non-Arab communities in Darfur in the early 2000s. The US government determined that the Janjaweed were responsible for genocide in Darfur during that time. Hemedti, who rose from humble camel trading origins, led one of the units accused of atrocities in the early 2000s. Under former dictator Omar al-Bashir, the Janjaweed were formalized and rebranded as the RSF in 2013. Hemedti built a powerful force and a corporate empire, leveraging gold mines in Sudan's rich deposits. His family firm, Al-Gunaid, rapidly became Sudan's largest gold exporter. Control over gold and access to cross-border trade networks remains a strategic prize in this war. The RSF's recent victory in Fasher means they now control all 5 state capitals in Darfur. However, this victory came at a horrific cost. Eyewitnesses and UN reports detail continuing atrocities, including mass killings, widespread sexual violence, large-scale detentions, abductions, and looting. UN Human Rights has documented multiple and consistent accounts of summary executions and sexual violence following the fall of Fasher. Reports indicate the RSF is targeting non-Arab communities, specifically the Fur, Jagwa, and Berti groups, which some analysts believe makes the violence consistent with a systematic process of ethnic cleansing. Famine-like conditions are already emerging across Darfur and Kordofan. Fasher was under an 18-month siege that blocked food supplies and led to starvation among residents. Yale University's Humanitarian Research Lab analyzed satellite images showing activity consistent with mass graves being dug in the city. They also found evidence of door-to-door clearance operations and large clusters of objects consistent with human bodies. The healthcare system has been devastated. The World Health Organization reported the tragic killing of more than 460 patients and medical staff at a former children's hospital during the takeover. Civilians who managed to flee the siege reported walking at night and witnessing dead bodies scattered along the route. Concerns are mounting because despite thousands fleeing, few are arriving safely at sanctuary towns like Tawila, begging the question, where are the others? Women and children face heightened risks. Sexual violence, including mass sexual violence, rape, and forced marriages, is widespread. UN investigators received testimony that RSF fighters taunted non-Arab women with racist slurs during sex attacks, threatening to force them to have Arab babies. The war is fundamentally fueled by international actors. This is not just a local fight, it is also seen as a proxy conflict. Sudan's strategic location, bordering 7 countries, controlling Red Sea access, and possessing rich resources, makes it highly attractive to foreign powers. The UAE is widely accused of being the primary backer of the RSF. The UAE has allegedly supplied weapons, including drones and arms, often funneled through transit routes in Chad and Libya. The UAE denies these claims. UAE interests include access to Sudan's gold reserves, with an estimated 90% of Sudan's gold production, valued at around $13.4 billion in illicit trade, smuggled out of the country, often reaching the UAE. They also seek control over strategic ports along the Red Sea coast and are driven by a political goal of deterring the influence of Islamism in the region. Egypt is said to be the main backer of the SAF. There is also a complex dynamic involving Russia, which has connections with the SAF military government but whose former Wagner group has connections and provides support to the RSF. The conflict is destabilizing the entire region. In neighboring South Sudan, the war is worsening the economy, causing a 24.5% contraction and increasing insecurity due to the cross-border movement of armed groups. SAF and RSF attacks have disrupted oil exports through Sudan. The conflict has also stalled peace talks over the disputed Abyei border region, where the presence of RSF elements violates existing agreements. Attempts to broker peace have so far failed. International mediation efforts, led by the Quad Group, the US, Saudi Arabia, Egypt, and the UAE, have not produced lasting results. The RSF recently agreed to a proposed 3-month humanitarian truce. However, the SAF military leadership remains hesitant, stating that they will only agree if the RSF withdraws from civilian areas and surrenders its weapons, conditions the RSF is unlikely to meet. Despite the urgent need, with 30.4 million people requiring humanitarian support and 24 million facing acute food insecurity, international aid is collapsing. Humanitarian funding is desperately short, exacerbated by previous aid cuts. This gap leaves millions without assistance. In the face of this collapse, Sudanese civilians are relying on local initiatives, such as emergency response rooms, youth-led networks that deliver life-saving assistance, food, and medical care where international agencies cannot reach. The UN human rights representative in Sudan, Li Fang, emphasized that the cost of silence, of inaction, is too high. Urgent and sustained international support, including humanitarian funding, accountability, and pressure on external backers like the UAE, is critical to save lives and prevent Sudan from plunging deeper into chaos. The territorial unity of Sudan should not be up for negotiation, and the world must act now before more communities are erased. This crisis is complex, with its roots deep in history and global interests, making it feel like watching a slow-motion catastrophe where the warning sirens have been sounding for years, but the necessary emergency response has yet to arrive.